My boss threatened to fire me after I confronted him for trying to seduce my girlfriend, but he ended up unemployed and facing a $365,000 lawsuit. Reddit is the last place I would ask for help, but I don't have many other places to turn regarding the problem with my boss and my girlfriend. I want to share what's been happening at my job over the past few months, and I hope I can get some advice on what to do. I'll try to be as detailed as possible while protecting the privacy of everyone involved. 2 years ago, I started working at a company that initially seemed like an amazing opportunity. The team was great, the environment was comfortable, and while the workload was sometimes heavy, it was manageable. Everything was fine until about 6 months ago, when our new boss arrived. Since this guy showed up, it's been hell. There's no other way to describe it. But it's not just about the workload. It's because this guy is a complete narcissist. And when I say complete, I mean everything revolves around him. He acts like the world owes him something just for existing. He doesn't even have the qualifications to be where he is, but he's well connected, and that's all it takes. The reason he's in this position of power is that he knows the owner's son. The owner's son also works here, but in a much higher role. So, basically, my boss isn't here because he's competent or capable. He's here because he has friends in high places, which gives him a sense of impunity that he uses to make life miserable for everyone working under him. I wasn't the only one affected. Since his arrival, he's done nothing but create obstacles in our work. He loves to give orders and make demands, but he doesn't lift a finger to do anything useful. He spends most of his time standing in his office or walking around the hallways, watching what we do, and then when someone on the team achieves something significant, he takes all the credit. He doesn't even try to hide it. Recently, I had a meeting with the department director to present a project that my team and I had worked on for weeks. It was something we were really proud of. And guess what happened? My boss sat there, having done absolutely nothing, and at the end of the meeting, he said it was his idea and that he was glad his team had executed it so well. I couldn't believe it. All the work, the sweat, and the extra hours I'd put into that project, only for this jerk to stand there and take all the credit. And the worst part is that no one in the room said anything. No one dared to contradict him because they know how well connected he is. This wasn't the only time he did something like that to me. One time, in the middle of a busy afternoon, he asked me to prepare a report he needed for a presentation. He said he wanted it ready in an hour, without giving me any room to reorganize my other tasks. I rushed to get it done, and when I brought it to his office, he glanced at it for a few seconds and then started yelling at me in front of everyone there, saying that the format was wrong and that it was shameful that I handed him something so mediocre. I felt humiliated, but when I pointed out that he'd given me contradictory instructions on what he wanted, he just got more aggressive, telling me I was being insubordinate and that he couldn't believe someone with such little attention to detail was still employed by the company. I'm not the only one who's suffered because of this guy. My teammate, with whom I often work, has also been one of his victims. One day, we were working on a project for one of the company's most important clients. She had been working on the logistics for weeks. When the time came to present the results, he started criticizing every little detail. He complained about things that were completely irrelevant or weren't even part of her responsibilities. After the meeting, he approached her in front of the whole team and told her that if she couldn't do her job right, maybe she should consider a role that required less from her. It was devastating to see her so frustrated. I knew how hard she'd worked, but no matter how much effort you put in, with this guy, it's never enough. And as if all that weren't bad enough, this guy also has a pretty dark history when it comes to how he treats women in the office. He blatantly flirts with them. Some have dated him, but there are many others who have turned him down. It's disgusting. In my personal case, things have gotten even more complicated because my girlfriend also works at the same company, in a different department. We met here about 8 months ago and have been dating since. My boss knows this, and it seems like he doesn't care at all. In fact, he seems to enjoy the situation because he constantly makes inappropriate comments to my girlfriend. My girlfriend is incredibly professional and has tried to keep her distance from him. From the beginning, she made it clear that she wasn't interested in him, but that hasn't stopped his advances. A few months ago, at a company party, my boss approached her and started making disgusting comments, telling her that if she ever got tired of dating someone like me, he'd be willing to show her what a real man was like. My girlfriend quickly walked away, but since that day, he's continued sending her suggestive messages and making lewd comments whenever he sees her. He's even gone as far as to send her emails from his corporate account, full of vulgar jokes and insinuations about how she deserves someone better. We've talked many times about going to human resources to report him, but she's scared. It's not just about how awkward it would be to confront the situation, but because she knows this guy is untouchable. The boss is close friends with the owner's son, and everyone knows it. My girlfriend fears that if she files a formal complaint, she'll get fired, or worse, be blacklisted in the industry. She doesn't have family in this city and relies heavily on her job. If she loses it, she doesn't want to depend on me until she finds another one, which I completely understand. I know it's a tough situation for her, but I can't sit back while this jerk harasses her and threatens us. The final straw was a week ago when my boss made a vulgar comment about one of our female teammates who wasn't present. We were in a team meeting when, out of nowhere, he started talking about how women like her were only here to climb the ladder quickly because someone was probably helping them in more ways than one. I couldn't take it anymore. I stood up and confronted him in front of everyone, telling him to shut up and stop talking about our coworkers like they were objects. I also told him to stop harassing my girlfriend, that enough was enough, and that if he didn't stop, I'd go to HR and file a complaint myself. At that moment, I felt powerful, but that didn't last long. The boss looked at me with an arrogant smile and said I could file whatever complaint I wanted, but he could make sure that both my girlfriend and I lost our jobs. He literally told me that having friends in high places opens many doors, but it can also close them. Then, he added that if I kept bothering him, not only would we be fired, but he'd also make it very hard for us to find work in this industry. Basically, he's threatening to destroy our careers if we do anything to defend ourselves. Now, here I am, asking for advice. I don't know what to do. I'm willing to lose my job if it means this guy pays for what he's done, but my girlfriend doesn't want to take the same risk, and I completely understand that. She doesn't have the same support network as I do. If she loses her job, it would be very difficult for her to recover. I've also thought about contacting other women who have been harassed by him, but I suspect many of them are as scared as my girlfriend. I don't want anyone to lose their job because of this guy, but what can I do if everyone at the company is afraid to stand up to him? Thank you to everyone who read this far. I really appreciate any advice or suggestions you can offer me. Update 1. My girlfriend and I have been talking a lot about what to do after reading some of the comments people left on the previous post, and I think we're finally starting to see a clear path forward. We're both really grateful to all of you, not just for giving us suggestions, but also for sharing your own stories about dealing with difficult bosses. I think the most logical and effective thing we can do is try to contact others who have also been harassed by my boss. We can't keep dealing with this on our own, and I've come to the conclusion that if more people file formal complaints, it will be much harder for the company to ignore the problem, even with his connections to the owner's son. However, my girlfriend still has her doubts, and I completely understand. She's very worried about retaliation, and although I don't care about losing this job if it means we can hold this guy accountable for what he's done, it's ultimately her decision. But after discussing it multiple times, I think she's starting to see the value in this idea. At the end of the day, neither of us can keep working in this kind of environment, and we also don't want others to continue being victims of his abuse. We know that the fear of losing your job is real, but it's also clear that working under these conditions is just as unbearable. For now, the plan is to start reaching out to other women who have been harassed by him. I already have a few people in mind who've mentioned feeling uncomfortable with his behavior. The tricky part will be approaching them in the right way because I don't want anyone to feel pressured or scared. The situation is delicate, and the last thing I want is for anyone else to feel threatened or fear losing their job just for speaking out. I've also been thinking about contacting the women who apparently had a relationship with him. I know this could be complicated, but I also have a feeling that those relationships weren't healthy for them. People like him tend to manipulate and use their power to get what they want, and if he was capable of harassing so many women, I wouldn't be surprised if he also mistreated the ones he was involved with. Maybe not all of them will want to talk, and some might feel ashamed, but I think it's something we should consider exploring. What's holding me back a little now is that I don't want to do anything without being completely sure my girlfriend is on board with this plan. I don't want to push her into something she's not ready to do or drag her into a fight she doesn't want to be part of. I've seen how much this situation has affected her, and although I think she also wants justice, I'm concerned she might not be emotionally prepared to face what could be a very difficult process. For now, we're taking things slowly. She's decided to start by approaching some of the women she already feels comfortable with to get a sense of whether they'd be willing to talk. If it seems like there's enough interest in filing complaints together, then we'll take things to the next level. I'm trying to be as strategic as possible at this point because I know once we open this Pandora's box, there's no going back. I won't lie, I'm nervous. I know this could end badly for both of us, but I also feel like we can't just stand by and watch this guy continue destroying the work environment for everyone. I'm determined to do the right thing, but I also know we need to be smart and careful about how we proceed. Thank you again to everyone for your advice and support. It's really helped a lot to know we're not alone in this. I'll keep you updated as we move forward with this process. Hopefully, We'll find a way to resolve this fairly. Update 2. The past few weeks have been extremely exhausting, not so much because of work itself, but because of everything we've had to do to gather enough evidence and coordinate the complaints against my boss. It's been emotionally draining, not just for my girlfriend and me, but for everyone involved in this. And while the fear is still present, I feel like we're closer to putting an end to this nightmare. During this time, my boss hasn't stopped with his antics. As if everything that's happened so far wasn't enough, a few days ago, he humiliated me again. He asked me to prepare a presentation for an important client, a task that required a lot of effort and dedication. I worked extra hours, not only to meet the deadline but also to ensure everything was perfect, given how crucial this client was for the company. On the day of the presentation, just before we entered the conference room, my boss quickly reviewed the material I had prepared and, without warning, decided to change everything at the last minute. Then, in the meeting, the client wasn't happy with what my boss presented. But instead of taking responsibility, he threw me under the bus, blaming me for the outcome. It was unprofessional, not only to do that to me but also to the client. Regardless of who was at fault, as the project lead, he should have taken responsibility, not pointed fingers at an employee. From the client's perspective, this isn't what you'd expect from a company you hire. But the most shocking thing that has happened in the past few weeks didn't directly involve me. A coworker from another group, who I've been talking to a lot recently because she's also had issues with my boss, finally lost her patience. It turns out my boss had been making inappropriate comments to her for months, and she had tried to remain calm and professional, but everyone has their limits. One day, during a meeting where she was presenting a project, my boss made a crude joke, insinuating that her success at the company wasn't due to her abilities but to other ways of impressing her superiors. It was a completely inappropriate comment, made in front of others. My coworker, visibly upset, looked at him and, without thinking twice, slapped him across the face. The room went silent. My boss tried to laugh it off awkwardly, but you could tell by his face that he was furious. She got up and walked out of the room without saying another word. Later, she told me she didn't regret what she did, but she was worried about the potential repercussions. Fortunately, she has also decided to join us in this collective complaint. She knows that going up against him alone would only cause her problems, but with all of us together, she feels this is the time to act. Now, 7 women are ready to file a formal complaint against him, including my girlfriend. It's been a huge relief to know she's finally decided to join in. I know it wasn't an easy decision for her, but with each passing day, it's become clearer that this is not an environment we can continue working in if nothing is done. And it's not just women who've been harassed. A couple of them are ex-girlfriends of my boss, in quotes, because their relationships with him didn't end well. After they broke up, he began harassing them more aggressively and cruelly, probably as retaliation for leaving him. One of them, in particular, told me a story that left me chilled. Apparently, when they were still together, my boss tried to hit on her sister at a party. That's what made her leave him, but things didn't end there. After she broke up with him, he started sabotaging her work. Suddenly, she began receiving impossible tasks, unrealistic deadlines, and constant criticism of her performance, all with the clear intention of making her life miserable until she quit. She's endured a lot, but now she feels this is her chance to get justice. I've also spoken to some colleagues who, like me, have been victims of his mistreatment. Although the focus of the complaint will be on his behavior toward women, it's important to highlight how he treats other employees as well. His abuse isn't just sexual or power-based, it's also emotional and professional. I've learned that at least 3 more people are willing to provide their accounts, describing how they've been humiliated, belittled, and manipulated by him. We all share the same goal. We want this to be such a decisive blow that the company cannot ignore it. We want it to be so big that even with his connections, the pressure will be overwhelming enough that the company will have no choice but to take action. And if they try to sweep this under the rug, we've already discussed other potential options, like taking the matter outside the company. Today is Friday, and we're just a couple of days away from making this official. The plan is for all of us to go to HR together on Monday morning. We won't be filing a group complaint, but we will all show up at the same time so they understand how serious this is. Each of us will have a private meeting with the HR team to share our individual experiences in detail. That way, each case can be handled separately, but with the collective force that we're all in this together. We know it won't be easy, and there's a strong possibility they'll try to protect him because of his connections. But we're confident that if there are enough of us, they'll have no choice but to act. And if they don't, we've already discussed other ways to take this outside the company. So that's all for now. Monday will be a crucial day. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm hopeful that we're finally close to achieving justice and breaking the cycle of abuse. I'll post an update once everything happens. Thanks again to everyone who's read and commented. Your support has been a beacon of light in this complicated process. Update 3. It's Monday night, and we've finally spent the whole day talking with human resources. It's been a pretty long day, though I wasn't surprised, and we were prepared for it. Each of us had the opportunity to share our side of the story. What I can say, for now at least, is that there's a small sense of relief in this process. After hearing all of our statements, HR decided to temporarily suspend my boss while they conduct a more thorough investigation. It's a first step, though I don't consider it a definitive victory yet. We know the investigation could go either way, but the suspension gives us some breathing room, allowing us to work without having to deal with him for a while. The most surprising part of the day was what happened after our meetings. My boss's friend, who is also the owner's son, gathered all of us who had filed complaints. Honestly, I was initially worried that this meeting might be a trap or a way to cover up what was happening, but it was completely different from what I expected. He told us he was shocked by everything that had come to light, and that he had no idea what his friend had been doing. The most surprising thing was that he seemed genuinely determined to investigate this thoroughly and assured us that he would take exemplary action against him if the accusations proved to be true. I can't say for sure whether he said this because he truly believes our version of events, or if he's just trying to protect the company's interests, but for now, it's a positive outcome. We knew there was a strong possibility that he might try to defend his friend, but instead, it seems like he's taking the matter seriously. Of course, I'm not naive. This could be part of a strategy to protect the company's reputation and avoid bigger problems. But at the end of the day, his interests and ours seem aligned, and that's what matters most right now. All that's left to do now is wait for the results of the HR investigation. I'm trying to keep my expectations in check because I know a lot could still happen. This could take weeks or even longer, but for now, I'm content that we've taken the first step. I hope to return soon with more news and, hopefully, a resolution worth sharing. Update 4. I have something to share that I honestly didn't think I'd be saying this soon. My boss, actually, my ex-boss, no longer works at the company. They've decided to fire him. And while we knew the situation was serious, this isn't the only bad thing that's happened to him recently. His downfall has been more dramatic than we ever could have imagined. And I can't help but feel immense satisfaction, both for myself, my girlfriend, and everyone who suffered under his abuse. To start, I want to say that I'm genuinely happy, and so is my girlfriend. Everyone involved feels relieved that this ordeal has finally come to an end, and in the best way possible. Until it was over, there was always that small possibility that, somehow, my ex-boss might evade the consequences, but thankfully, that didn't happen. The fact that he's been fired is reason enough to celebrate, but what came next was the real surprise. The company decided to fire him after the HR investigation, which was already a huge relief because it meant we wouldn't have to deal with him at work anymore. They've even brought in a new manager for my team, and so far, I can confidently say he's infinitely better than the last one. He's someone who genuinely seems interested in the well-being of the team and doing things the right way. Radical change compared to what we've been enduring. But what truly shocked us was learning that the company not only fired him, but they're also suing him. This came to light thanks to several statements made during the investigation, which revealed that my ex-boss wasn't just harassing his employees, he was also defrauding the company. I don't have all the details since this is part of an internal investigation we don't have direct access to, but the rumors are strong. Apparently, my ex-boss had been selling confidential client information to competitors. He had extensive access to client data, especially as someone overseeing major projects and managing sensitive contracts. The rumor, though just that for now, is that he used his position to gather key information about clients, including their market preferences, future strategies, and even details of their negotiations with us. He then allegedly sold that information to some of our closest competitors, which is not only a flagrant breach of the confidentiality agreements we have with our clients, but also an absolute betrayal of the company's trust. From what I've heard, the company is suing him for a pretty significant amount, around $365,000. While that may not sound like millions, it's a considerable sum for a lawsuit of this nature. Breaking a confidentiality agreement isn't something taken lightly, and violations like this often carry severe financial and legal consequences. His reputation has been tarnished in a way that he'll likely never recover from, not just within the company or our industry, but beyond it. His name is now associated not only with workplace harassment, but also with a major fraud, making his chances of finding another job in this field practically non-existent. And that's what truly brings me peace. Knowing that if any of us decide to move to a new company for better opportunities, we won't have to worry about encountering him again. Not only is he out of our company, but he's very likely out of any other company in this industry. If he loses this lawsuit, it'll add another stain to his record, making his future employment even more difficult. While he might try to find work in another industry, within hours, his name is permanently tarnished. Honestly, this is far more than I expected when we began this process. At the start, we just wanted him to stop harassing us and making our work lives hell. But this has escalated to a level we never anticipated. The fact that he's facing legal consequences for what he's done is, frankly, the best outcome we could have hoped for. Lastly, I want to give a huge thanks to everyone who advised us to file a group complaint. It was, without a doubt, the best decision we could have made. If we'd gone individually, we probably wouldn't have achieved as much. Things are much calmer now, and while we still have to see how the lawsuit against my ex-boss ends, I already feel like we've won. Update 5. I want to make one final update about the situation with my ex-boss and his lawsuit. For those who have been following this entire ordeal, it seems like it has finally come to an end. My ex-boss has lost the lawsuit, or at least that's how it looks, since he and the company have reached a private settlement. While the exact details of the agreement haven't been disclosed, he has agreed to pay a substantial amount to put all of this behind him. There have been rumors circulating about the settlement being over $250,000, but as I mentioned before, I can't confirm if that number is accurate. However, when there are so many rumors, there's usually some truth behind them, so it's likely that the figure is pretty close to the real amount. Whatever the exact amount is, it's clear that what he had to pay has been a significant consequence for him. At the end of the day, the most important thing is that this financial penalty has served as a fair punishment for him. For all of us involved, it's an immense relief. Knowing that he had to face the consequences of his actions gives us the peace we needed. Although we can't erase what happened, we can at least close this chapter with the satisfaction that justice was served.